Somewhere in a museum in Indiana, there is an engine that almost no one knows exists. Chrysler built it in secret. It was lighter than the 426 Hemi, cheaper to produce, and by every internal measure, fast enough to humiliate anything else on the street. It was designed to be the engine that carried the muscle car era into the next decade. And then, in 1969, with production less than 2 years away, they killed it. They scrapped the tooling. They destroyed the prototypes. All of them except one. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is about the stories they didn't put in the brochure. The cars and engines that got built, got killed, and got forgotten. Stay until the end of this one because this story ends somewhere you won't expect. By the late 1960s, Chrysler owned the drag strip, the 426 Hemi, the engine that became the heartbeat of the Dodge Challenger and the Plymouth Barracuda, had been dominating NASCAR and the NHRA for years. It was brutal, it was loud, and it was genuinely terrifying to race against. But it had a problem. The 426 Street Hemi was expensive, complicated to build, heavy. In its entire production run from 1966 to 1971, Chrysler only managed to produce about 9,000 complete engines. For a company that wanted to put Hemi power in every car on the lot, that number was nowhere near enough. So in the late 1960s, a small team of Chrysler engineers was given a mission: build a better Hemi, lighter, cheaper, easier to produce at scale. Something that could eventually replace the 383, the 400, the 440, and even the 426. One engine family to rule them all. What they built was extraordinary. What happened to it is a story Mopar fans are still angry about 50 years later. The problem with the Hemi. To understand why Chrysler needed a new engine, you need to understand just how much of a headache the 426 Hemi actually was. The original Hemi's power came from its hemispherical combustion chambers, a dome-shaped design that burned fuel more completely and allowed for larger valves than a conventional wedgehead engine. It was a masterpiece of engineering, but that masterpiece came at a cost. The 426 used twin rocker shafts, one for the intake valves, one for the exhaust, running along the top of each massive cylinder head. That design required complex, expensive castings that were time-consuming to manufacture and difficult to service. The engine was so wide it could barely fit in some of Chrysler's own engine bays. 9,000 engines in 5 years. For context, Ford built more Mustangs than that in a single good week. The 426 was a racing engine wearing a streetcar costume, and Chrysler knew it. If they wanted Hemi performance to survive into the 1970s, if they wanted it to be available in more than just top-of-the-line cars at 4 times the price, they needed something new. Project A279. The project was designated A279 internally. To the engineers who worked on it, it became known by a more colorful nickname, the Ball-Stud Hemi, named after the new ball-stud rocker arm design at its heart. The concept was elegant. Instead of the twin rocker shafts of the 426, the new engine used individual ball-stud-mounted rocker arms, the same basic principle used by Chevrolet's Big Block and Ford's Cleveland. The design was lighter, simpler, and far cheaper to produce in volume, 6.5 inches narrower, 100 pounds lighter. That's the difference between an engine that fits comfortably in a mid-size car and one that you're basically shoehorning into whatever will take it. The A279 was planned in 2 displacements, a 400 cubic inch version and a 444 cubic inch version. Chrysler liked that number, 444. It had a ring to it, something you could put in a magazine ad. The performance targets were ambitious but achievable. The 444 was expected to outperform the 444 barrel, Chrysler's standard high-performance option, and come within striking distance of the 426 Street Hemi. Not quite the king, but close enough for a car you could actually afford to insure. After approximately a year of development, the prototype ran. The engineers worked through the kinks. Internal tests showed the numbers were where they needed to be. By late 1969, the Ball-Stud Hemi was slated for production sometime between 1971 and 1973. The muscle car's next chapter had an engine, the Storm Clouds. But 1969 was also the year everything started going wrong for the muscle car, for the industry, and for the A279. The Clean Air Act was signed into law on New Year's Eve, 1970, giving manufacturers a roadmap for emission standards they knew were going to be brutal. High compression engines, aggressive camshafts, massive carburation, all of it was going to have to go. Insurance companies had already started flagging high-performance cars. A young driver buying a Hemi-powered Barracuda could expect to pay insurance premiums that nearly doubled the cost of ownership. Dealers were reporting that buyers were walking away from the performance options, not because they didn't want them, but because they literally couldn't afford to drive them. And then there was the money problem, specifically Chrysler's money problem. Mass-producing the Ball-Stud Hemi wasn't just a matter of finishing the engineering. It required substantial new tooling and production equipment. The investment was real, and it was large. And Chrysler, in the late 1960s, was not in a position of strength. The company that had ruled the drag strip was quietly struggling. Sales were softening. The market was moving. And somewhere in the executive suites in Highland Park, Michigan, someone started doing the math. The math didn't work. The kill order. The Ball-Stud Hemi project was stopped in late 1969. No announcement, no press release, no explanation to the public or to the dealers who had been quietly told to expect a new performance engine. The A279 simply stopped. The tooling that had been created was scrapped. The prototype engines, Mopar, historians believe somewhere between 3 and 12 were built, though most insiders put the number closer to 3, were ordered destroyed. Think about what that means. These weren't rough sketches. They weren't clay models. They were running engines. Engines that had been on dynos. Engines that engineers had spent a year of their careers building. Engines that could have been the future of Mopar performance. And someone decided to crush them. Almost all of them. The one that got away. Here's where the story takes a turn. Somewhere in the process of destroying the Ball-Stud Hemi prototypes, one engine didn't make it to the crusher. Accounts differ on exactly how. One version of the story involves Dick Maxwell, a member of the legendary Ram Chargers drag racing team and a Chrysler technical advisor, who reportedly asked the company to set aside one engine for himself. He had plans to drop it into a T-bucket hot rod. Those plans never materialized. What's documented is that another icon of the Mopar drag racing world, Dick Landy, known to his fans as Dandy Dick, ended up in possession of the last known Ball-Stud Hemi prototype. How he came to have it isn't entirely clear. The engine was reportedly given to him by Bob Cahill, who worked in Chrysler's R&D department. If any civilian was going to end up with a piece of Chrysler's most secret engineering project, Dick Landy was the man. And for years, the engine sat with Landy. A relic, a rumor, something that Mopar people talked about in hushed tones at car shows. The Ball-Stud Hemi, the engine that almost was. And then Dick Landy sold it. And what happened next is either the best part of this story or the most painful, depending on how you look at it. The desecration. The engine went to a Mopar builder named John Arutza, a man with the skills to do almost anything with it, and apparently the willingness to do exactly that. Arutza bored it out, replaced the rotating assembly, modified the intake manifold, added a Holley 4-barrel carburetor, effectively turned the rarest Chrysler prototype engine in existence into a built street/strip motor. The result? On the dyno, the rebuilt Ball-Stud Hemi produced over 500 horsepower. Mopar historians have had strong opinions about this for years. Some view it as vandalism, the automotive equivalent of painting over a Rembrandt. The only surviving example of a historically significant engine modified beyond its original specification, never to be documented in its factory form. Others point out that the Ball-Stud Hemi was always meant to be an engine, not a museum piece. That running it, building it, seeing what it could actually do, that's exactly what the engineers who designed it would have wanted. There's no clean answer. But here's what happened next. The modified engine was installed in a 1969 Plymouth Barracuda notchback, a car that had once belonged to Tom Hoover, the Chrysler engineer who was arguably more responsible for the 426 Hemi's development than anyone else alive. One legendary Chrysler man's engine in another legendary Chrysler man's car. That combination, the engine and the Barracuda, was raced, campaigned, bought, and sold through the years. And eventually, a collector named Bob Solberg acquired it and did something nobody had done with this engine in 50 years. He gave it back. The museum. Bob Solberg donated the Ball-Stud Hemi, installed in the '69 Barracuda, to the National Auto and Truck Museum in Auburn, Indiana. Today, if you drive to Auburn, about an hour north of Fort Wayne, you can walk into that museum and stand in front of the only surviving Ball-Stud Hemi engine that Chrysler built. It's not behind thick velvet rope. It's not in a sealed glass case in some private collection. It's there. You can walk up to it. You can see the 1969 date cast into the block, the year the project was killed. You can look at those ball-stud rocker arms that never made it to a single production car. One engine out of somewhere between 3 and 12 that were built. The only one that survived 50 years of storage, legal disputes, modifications, racing campaigns, and the simple entropy that destroys most things. It made it. What it would have meant. Let's play the alternate history game for a minute, because the Ball-Stud Hemi wasn't canceled because it didn't work. It was canceled because the business math didn't work in late 1969, but the engineering was sound. Imagine a 1972 Dodge Challenger in still wearing the beautiful E-body styling with a factory 44 cubic inch Ball-Stud Hemi under the hood, lighter than the 426. Cheaper than the 426, making power that outran the 440 and pushed toward the 426 territory. Instead, the 1972 Challenger came with a 245 horsepower version of the 340 as its top option, 185 less horsepower than the engine that was sitting in a Chrysler prototype the year before. That gap is the story of the muscle car era's death. Not in broad strokes, in specific numbers, in a specific engine that existed, performed, and was destroyed anyway. Could the Ball-Stud Hemi have saved the muscle car era? Probably not. The regulatory and economic forces were too large, but it might have extended it. It might have given Mopar performance a bridge, something to carry the fire through the malaise years until the market turned back. The way the Fox body Mustang carried Ford's performance tradition into the 1980s. We'll never know, because the tooling was scrapped and almost all the engines were destroyed. What the collectors know. Here's what makes this story land differently in 2025 than it would have in 1985. The Mopar collector market has become extraordinary. A documented 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda convertible, one of 14 known to exist, regularly sells for over $1 million. A numbers-matching 1969 Charger Daytona with the 426 Hemi commands $500,000 to $800,000 at major auctions. The rarer the Hemi application, the higher the number, which raises a question about the Ball-Stud Hemi that the Mopar community genuinely debates. Are there more engines out there? The Wikipedia entry says 3 to 12 were built. Most insiders say closer to 3, but forum posts from people who claim to have worked at Chrysler Engineering in that era describe seeing more. One post from the thehemi.com forums, from someone claiming first-hand knowledge, describes running the engines on the performance dynos at the Chrysler Engineering Center in Highland Park. Describes a 71 GTX with one installed. These accounts can't be verified. They may be mistaken, they may be exaggerated, or they may mean that somewhere in a garage, in a barn, in a storage unit that hasn't been opened since 1975, there's another Ball-Stud Hemi sitting under a blanket. If there is. And anyone with knowledge of the Mopar community knows this. The people who would recognize it are out there. The documentation exists to authenticate it. And the value of a second confirmed prototype would be significant. The Mopar world is small and obsessive in the best possible way. These things get found. The bigger story, but I want to end this video with something that goes beyond the engine specs and the auction values. The Ball-Stud Hemi is one data point in a larger pattern. The muscle car era ended not with a bang, but with a series of quiet decisions in conference rooms and engineering departments. Programs canceled, tooling scrapped, prototypes destroyed. Not because the engineering failed, but because the business model shifted. The men who built these engines, the engineers at Chrysler, at GM, at Ford, they didn't want to stop. The guys who welded the bodies and bolted in the motors didn't want to stop. The people who drove them off the showroom floors definitely didn't want to stop. But someone upstairs did the math. And the math won. What the Ball-Stud Hemi represents, sitting in that museum in Auburn, modified and raced and donated, one engine out of a handful that were ever built, is proof that the fire was still burning. That in late 1969, at the very moment the era was being quietly put down, Chrysler's engineers had figured out how to build something better. It just never got the chance. If you want to see the Ball-Stud Hemi in person, and I genuinely recommend it, it's at the National Auto and Truck Museum in Auburn, Indiana. It's worth the drive. If you're a Mopar person and you've heard other accounts of the A279 program, engines that were supposedly saved, stories from people who worked in Highland Park, drop them in the comments. This community takes documentation seriously, and there are people watching this channel who know things. And if you found this video because you've been chasing Mopar history and you hadn't heard this story before, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe if you want more. We go deep on the cars and engines that got buried. I'll see you in the next video.